Hey everybody, it's Nat C Jones here with Nat C Company, and today I have some very special company. His name is William B. Morris. He's an entrepreneur, and we're going to have a talk today about entrepreneurship. Hey, Will.
Hey Nat, how you doing?
I'm doing good. So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and your business?
Okay, so hey everybody, my name is Will B. Morris. As Nat said, I am the lead creative director at Genuine Creative Agency, and I'm an entrepreneur.
You are. Would you go ahead and tell us what you do at Genuine Creative Agency? What is that company all about?
So it's a marketing firm. We help a plethora of different clients, whether it's through design, marketing strategy, whatever it has to do with getting their brand out there to a further reach or a new audience, we do it. So I've been doing it for the past 10 plus years. So I'm too far in to turn back now. So
10 years. You look like you 20. All right. Entrepreneurship is good for the skin, everyone. Okay, forget
yeah,
what they told you. All
yes.
right. Question number two. What is the hardest thing about being an entrepreneur, in your opinion?
The hardest thing for me, I guess, was to learn that the ups and downs of being an entrepreneur, which is even though sometimes it can be the best money you've ever made in your entire life, there are
Mm.
some winter seasons in being an entrepreneur where you have to prepare yourself for. And it also forces you to be disciplined because even as an entrepreneur, you're making your own capital. You're deciding when you're going to go on vacation, when you're not, but also you have to take into account those winter months because you can't eat all your seed. And then when winter comes, it's like, yo, business is slow. So you got to take that into account. So that was the hardest thing to learn because although it's quick money, you got to be real disciplined with how you are able to spend it and save.
That makes me think of the story of Joseph, where he was in the palace and he had to manage 7 years of plenty for 7 years of famine instead of just balling out, I got some money, And then all of a sudden, when the clientele, they're not picking up the phone as much or the money isn't coming in as much, now you're eating ramen. No offense, ramen, but
Right.
I'd rather have steak. Okay,
Right.
so, even though that is the case, you know that there are winter months with being an entrepreneur, would you change your decision about becoming an entrepreneur, honestly, if you had to do it all over again?
Honestly, no. I mean, I worked a 9 to 5 for 7 years, like in between as I was really taking the leap to be a full entrepreneur. But even when I think about me working for someone else's business and doing something that I didn't enjoy or doing something that I became almost, I just tolerated it because it was consistent money, but I really wasn't tapping into my full potential as it related to doing marketing or just doing what I was passionate about, like seeing people do what they enjoy doing. So would I change anything? No. I mean, sometimes those winter months have you question, but it's when you really think of the full picture and really like what you're currently doing now as an entrepreneur, you're like, no, it's not worth it. I'm going to figure it out. I'm going to get through this little season that I'm in. I'm going to have to eat ramen for a few days, but I wouldn't go back because again, I love collaborating with people, but I'm just not that type of person that wants to be controlled by someone else's vision, I guess you can say.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. I just received an offer for a job that was paying $150,000 a year. And I was like, yeah. but it was a company that I don't want to work with because I don't like the people. That's one of the things I like about being an entrepreneur as well. I work with who I want to work with. You know,
Right.
when you work for somebody else, when the client shows up, you have to put that smile on, even if they are terrible. You just have to deal with them. But we don't have to do that as entrepreneurs. We have an option. And plus, I know how to doctor up some ramen for the hard times. Did you know that if while the noodles are still boiling, if you drop a raw egg in ramen and stir it real fast, it becomes creamy, and then you sprinkle a little bacon bits or some chicken or something on top, it tastes just like chicken Alfredo. I'm just saying.
No way. No way. I did
Yeah,
not know.
I don't have to do that anymore. But back in the day when I was struggling for real, I became very creative with the ramen. I'm just saying. But it's too high in sodium. It's not good for you. But I'm just saying it'll keep you full.
Right.
All right. So what would you say is the best part about this entrepreneurship journey? What
The
keeps you
best
going?
the best part is the places that I'm able to travel as an entrepreneur, and the variety of businesses that I'm able to just not just businesses, but the people behind the businesses that I'm able to collaborate with and really get into their world, because I'm a creative, undiagnosed ADHD type person, and I get bored very quickly. And not to the point where I'm bored and I'm just stagnant, like, no, I gotta move. So it's like I need to be in a high rise looking down at the city while I'm designing, or be in like a barn house cafe while I'm having like a Zoom meeting. I just need to switch it up. And my whole, I guess you could say, mantra as an entrepreneur, for one, I want to do what I love, but I also want to be around people who are doing what they love, and the opportunity to collaborate. That is the best feeling in the world, because it's like, I'm from literally the place I grew up is Plainfield, New Jersey. So I'm not gonna say it's plain, but just this story, like I grew up in a place to where it was the norm to just, hey, we go to high school, we stay in town, this is what we do. No, I'm the one that moved all the way to Orlando, Florida, been here 12 years now, and looking back is like, I want to see, I can always go back to being plain. I can
Yeah.
always rest on the fact of going back to Plainfield, but no, I'm going to see what the world has to offer, and I want to see others who are willing to take that risk too.
I love that. You could totally make a whole movement out of just I left Plainfield. I didn't even know there was a place called Plainfield, New Jersey.
Yeah.
That'll preach. Okay. So you said something that made me think of something. Do you notice that people receive you differently, or they interact with you or treat you differently? What's the difference between being an employee and an entrepreneur as far as how people engage you or how seriously they take you?
As a, like, people who are potential clients, or just people in general?
Yeah, just people in general. Like, do you notice that you're received differently as an entrepreneur than you were as an employee?
Yeah, because now it's almost, it forces people, even when it comes down to like my rates and me really doing this full time, people look at me now like, huh, they have like this, they see me on a particular level now. And as far as before, it was just like, oh, that's just a hobby you're doing. You don't even like, it wouldn't necessarily even be like they're referring me as like William, the creative director. No, it was almost like, William, oh yeah, he does, like, he sings or he does some graphic design, but not to the point where he's like a business. But now that I'm doing this full time, I think my boundaries, and even when it comes down to like the systems that I put in place for my business, it forces people to see you on another level. They know you can't, they just can't call you just out of the blue. Or if they do have like an inquiry, I've already have like a cheat sheet in place. Like, oh, cool, click this link so we can get on my calendar, or
Mhm.
fill out this questionnaire. Because again, as an entrepreneur, though it's free and it's liberating and you create your own schedule, you have to create boundaries so that you can be like, you can do this long term, because
Mhm.
this whole random got a meeting, what time, okay, what I gotta design, okay, what's to do list today. I mean, don't get me wrong, we all have that organization stage, but
Yeah,
it can't be like that 24/7, especially when you're doing this full time,
yeah.
because again, you want recurring clients, you want people to take you seriously, you want them to know, like, once they fill out a form, like, okay, you're gonna show up for that Zoom meeting. So them seeing me differently, yes, but it also plays a role in me putting certain systems in place. So
Okay.
it's not like, oh well, he ain't doing nothing, let me just call him. No, we
Mhm.
got business hours.
He ain't doing nothing. Let me just call him. Oh
Right.
no, 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 no. So I created a new term to describe that person who is in transition from their job to trying to start a business. You know, we've all been there in that limbo stage. I call
Mhm.
them employpreneurs. Employpreneurs.
Mhm.
And I'm sharing that with you because you came up with your own term and you wrote a book, and I can't say the title, and I want you to say it. And then I want you to spell it, because if you can't spell it, that's a shame, because it's the title of your own book. So go ahead and tell everybody what the title of your first book was and what the book was about.
Okay, so my first book's original title was Entrepreneurganism. It's Entrepreneurganism, Entrepreneurganism.
Uh-huh.
Um, and after consulting with a few experts in the field, I was able to turn that into a chapter as opposed to leaving it as the name of the book. But it's called My Purpose Has a Pulse. So when you think of an entrepreneur, when you think of an organism, so it's the portmanteau, putting the two words together to describe, like, an entrepreneur is like, if what you're doing as a being, if it's not giving you life, if it's not, as far as even as relates to your business, if it's not becoming something that's a living entity, um, it's not, you're not doing it. It's not, you're
Right.
not an entrepreneur. Your entrepreneurship is not just about business. It's also about you doing what makes you want to keep doing it. Because if not, you could just work for somebody else and be in the same boat, as far as just doing something just to make a dollar. But no, if you're going to be spending these amount of hours pouring into your business, you need to be excited about it. No, it's not going to be vacation on the beach every time. But my book, My Purpose Has a Pulse, that's what I ended up changing the name to. um, it was speaking to creatives and entrepreneurs to pursue the things that make them, that bring them life, that makes them like want to get up out of the bed in the morning. Though you may not get out of bed at 8 in the morning, because that is too early for me as an entrepreneur.
That is not early.
That is early for me. But what you're doing as a business, as a creative, it should be forming into an organism, something that is moving, something that is alive. If it's not doing that, then you're doing the wrong thing.
I love it because one of my favorite ways to write, because I'm a writer, my one of my favorite tools to use is personification, which is um, assigning human characteristics to something that's not human. And of course,
Mhm.
entrepreneurs are human, but it's still a thing. And
Right.
for you to make entrepreneur separate from being human and then give it these human characteristics, it was really dope. And the cover's really dope. And we're going to show it right now. Boom. So where can they find this book? Is it on Amazon? Where is it?
Currently, I have it on my website. You can go to genuinecreativeagency.com, and click the link to purchase the book, and we can ship it out. Even when it comes down to how I design the cover when it's printed, it has a texture to it. So again, it touches the senses of even the reader from just grabbing the book, and just to give into the whole idea of what you're doing as a business. it just needs to be something that you can feel that's alive, that has a pulse. When a doctor or somebody, if you're in an ambulance or going for a checkup, they check that pulse, like there's senses that shows that you are alive. If you don't have those things, you're doing the wrong thing.
Yeah, you want a live business, not a dead one. And what's cool about that is you know when you're live because you have a pulse, but other people also know when you're live. And that
Mhm.
could speak to how people perceive your business and is it really making an impact? Can people hear your heartbeat? Can they see you move? You know what I mean? Don't get me started. I'm good at this stuff. Anyway, all right. So, what is the greatest lesson that you've learned or your best memory so far on your journey of entrepreneurship?
Learning the whole learning curve of customer service, and not just from the standpoint of the customer is always right, but also like you have boundaries as well. Now, if it's a recurring thing to where a customer is always like checking you on the same lesson, then yeah, you need to change. You need
Mhm.
to like put some things in place so that you can be better. But also, you also have to put, again, this whole boundary thing. You got to put systems in place to where, for one, you're covering yourself as an entrepreneur, so there's no, I guess, loopholes to where customers could potentially take advantage of you. And I'm an advocate that every customer is a good customer. Like, they start off good, just so you have a unbiased
Right,
uh, viewpoint to them. But
right.
there are some red flags that now you can start to take into consideration if they're not honoring business hours, if they're not following instructions that you've already made clear from the beginning. I even now do, from me learning customer service, I do recorded Zooms. So this way, I have another line of communication thread that I can always go back to just in case something is misunderstood or
Mhm.
um, like unheard of. I've recently even had a customer that always wanted to call me for stuff that was outside of the boundaries of what the agreement was. So I had to
Mm.
force them to now send everything through email thread. So
Wow.
now it allowed me to, for one, have something in writing. So all of it was documented, because as an entrepreneur, especially when you're dealing with clientele and their deadlines and things like that, assumptions are they naturally come up, especially when the assumption is in their favor on their
Mhm.
end. And you always should have a thread of communication that you can follow just in case it gets to a place to where I literally had to not cancel, but stop the work relationship
Mm.
because of their what was the term I want to use? In consideration.
Mm.
Uh,
That's a nice
and
term.
I still gave them what I was required to give them, but I had to let them know I was no longer comfortable working with their in this work relationship. And the email said, "This will now conclude our working relationship. Have a nice day."
Wow. Wait, was
Uh,
this the female Will?
yes, it was.
Okay. I'm just assuming. Let me tell you something, you guys. So Will is just the nicest person you ever want to meet. So if you get him to a point where he says this is the end of our working relationship, you are terrible, and it's your fault. I don't even know who she is, but I'm certain it was her fault, and I'm certain she's a terrible person. You don't have to say it. I'm gonna say it, and so I'll take that. But you know what I was thinking when you were talking, because entrepreneurs, everyone has a different kind of personality. I think you have to customize your customer service around your personality. So if you're someone who's naturally like sweet and giving and give someone a shirt off your back, you have to focus on setting boundaries with customer service. I have to make sure that I have these things in place, because if I don't, I will give people everything and I'll have nothing, right? But if you're a little bit more selfish, or someone who, you know, may be a little more aggressive or maybe not as nice, you have to focus on building, listening more and finding out what the customer needs and getting that feedback, because that doesn't come to you naturally. You know what I'm saying? Because all
Right.
entrepreneurs are different. Now you need all of that, but I'm just saying, depending on the type of entrepreneur you are, you need to probably focus more energy in the area that's opposite of your natural inclination. Um, because someone like me, I have no problem setting boundaries. But what I have to do is work on what's something else that I can offer, or, you know, going that extra mile and things like that. But customer service, you're right, that is number one. There's so many things that people overlook about customer service. It's so important. Customer service is so important. I drive by 3 grocery stores every day to get to Publix.
Mm.
Publix costs more and is further away, but because of the way they treat me when I'm in Publix, I will burn my gas, and I need my gas. And I will
Right.
drive to Publix every time. Buy Winn-Dixie, buy Albertsons. There's no Albertsons, but you know, whatever. And I go
Right.
straight. And my kids will be like, "Why are we paying?" No, I got to go to the Greenland. Got to go to Greenland, green and white. I bleed green and white. Yeah, so that's good. How would you advise someone? How would you advise someone who is considering entrepreneurship, like maybe an employer-preneur that's thinking about making the jump? What's the number one piece of advice that you think they would need to hear?
I would say just do it. Just jump. It's like honestly, my biggest advice to them would be to intern or to volunteer with somebody else, or even buy somebody a cup of coffee who is an entrepreneur and sit down with them and see, like, okay, what systems did they put in place to make that leap? Or like, why did they, and just to pull, like, interview them on asking them, like, why or how do they do it? Like, how are you making this happen? And because again, as an entrepreneur, I think the biggest fear of mine was like, well, what does it look like? Like, how am I going to pay my bills? Can I get insurance? I mean, don't I have to work for somebody else to get like medical insurance, or don't I have to? It's like that type of stuff that goes in people's minds.
Mhm.
And it's as simple as buying a cup of coffee and having a sit down with somebody who is doing this. Because I'm one too, like, I'm a trailblazer to the core. I didn't have a example of what like a full entrepreneur was, even though I was doing entrepreneurial things as a kid. I did a lemonade stand outside of my
You did?
house
I was gonna ask you
and
what you did. Yeah.
like made $17 that day.
And you were like,
You
"Oh yeah, baby, got that money."
and even in middle school, like entrepreneur, I was always wanting to find stuff that was different, that my friends weren't necessarily, they weren't on that frequency. So even the word entrepreneur in middle school, I made that like a poster or something, and I had that. But definitely, for one, if you believe, as an speaking to somebody who's looking to make that jump, if this is something you want to do, I say really make that investment. Buy some coffee and interview somebody, or go to a conference and find out what tools or systems or resources there are for people that want to do this, because it's possible. I mean, this is 2022 going into 2023. You can make money selling sand from East Jabip and make bread. Like, you can do anything you want, but you definitely have to know what are the systems that need to be in place so that you can do this long term. Because the day and age of just being that quick and 1 week success and then got to go back and be like and work for somebody again. No, if you're going to do this, figure out what systems are in place and then really make that jump, knowing that you have systems to fall on. Because when I was let go from my job of 7 years, it was the systems that I had put in place that allowed me to lean on while I was in full-time entrepreneurship. It's the systems and relationships. So you got to be able to build those before you make that.
That's good. That's tweetable. Systems and relationships. Speaking of selling anything, I saw online people that live in the mountains were selling mason jars full of fresh air. Mason
Fresh
jars,
what? Fresh air.
fresh air. Two people, check this out, two people who live in highly populated areas and highly polluted areas like China and things like that. They were shipping jars of fresh air. So as you can imagine, if you can imagine, people are buying these jars, opening them and like, and I'm assuming you can only get one breath because the rest of it goes out.
Right. And ain't no putting it back in.
The fact that people even thought about that, I'm like, the profit margin has to be out of this world because that air is free. You just paying for a mason jar.
And the shipping, I know, is crazy. Yo, people, look, when
you are paying for a mason jar that smells like grass. That's what you're paying for. But people are buying it.
It lets you know when they want something, they will buy it.
Yeah, they will make up a reason to, in their mind, I need this, because we buy a lot of things that don't make sense, but we buy because of how we feel. It's not logical, you know. Right. My first business, oh my gosh, you talk about being an entrepreneur from very young. I used to like do manicures and pedicures for people at church, like paint their nails and do the whole thing. And then when I went to college, I was at Florida A&M. I started selling bandanas that I decorated with puff paint and rhinestones. I was selling it on the set. And some t-shirts, I would do like a design on the t-shirt and sell those on the set. I didn't know why. I just always wanted to make money my own way. And it never stopped. So speaking of that, you finish this sentence. You know you're an entrepreneur if blank. For those people that are like, I don't know, am I? Could I be?
You know you're an entrepreneur if what you've created in your mind never leaves your mind. Like, meaning like, I've tried to put down graphic design. I've tried to put down working or doing marketing things per se, and I wanted to go in another route. And it always is the very thing that keeps coming back up in my mind, keeps coming back up, and people asking me for certain things or wanting me to educate them in certain areas. So you're an entrepreneur if what you, that's a trick. I'm tongue-tied in that, but because I'm saying so many things, like, because pretty much like naturally I would do this for free. I would do it for free, but people want to pay me for it. Like, they keep asking, they keep saying, well, hey, can you make this happen? And even if they don't come out right saying they would pay for it, once they go through my process, they gonna know that's what they got to do to make it happen. But like, if it's something that you've continued to try to put down, but it keeps coming back up, you try to get rid of the singing, you try to put down designing paintings or whatever, and it keeps coming back, you're an entrepreneur. Any person that I've communicated with, whether it's a singer, a graphic designer, a dancer, whatever you want to call it, the ones that are doing this full time, their first thing they tell me is learn the business side of it. Because that's a lot of reason why people want to put things down, because I'm not making no money doing this. Or I'm putting all these hours and I'm not seeing anything in return. But it's the business piece that's aligned with your passion that allows you to be an entrepreneur. It's just putting those behind the scenes systems in place so that now you can do what you love, but the business aspect is there too.
Yeah. You know, what's interesting, when you were talking, I was thinking about the different ways that people come into entrepreneurship. To me, entrepreneurship, for some reason, an entrepreneur is different than just a business owner. And
Mm-hmm.
I know people may disagree with that, but I think many entrepreneurs come into business not necessarily coming from business school. You know what I
Right.
mean? So entrepreneurs oftentimes come into it from a passion and they just figure it out as they go along when it comes to the business side. But then you have people who literally went to business school and they can run any business because they understand business, right? I remember when I was in architecture school, a classmate of mine who worked for a firm had lunch with the CEO, and he learned that the CEO of the architecture firm where he worked, the CEO did not have a degree in architecture. And he was like, what? He said, yeah, he just told me he had a degree in business and he wanted to run a architecture firm. So he started an architecture firm, but he really doesn't know how to do any of the things that we know how to do working for him, but he understands business. And I was like, what? How is that even possible? Right? So you have that in where if you learn about business, you can run pretty much any business. Then as an entrepreneur, you're kind of learning it from the skill level up versus the executive level down. That's how
Right.
I define it. I know that's not always the case, but that's how I see it. I see entrepreneurs as entrepreneurship as a grassroots experience where you have this passion and now you want to fuse it with the business sense. You know what I mean? At least that's
Okay.
been my journey and all the people that I know didn't go to
No,
business.
I mean, that makes sense because, again, as an entrepreneur, we are gifted and creative, very artisanal, where it's like we have these cool ideas,
What is artisanal? Is that a word for real?
like an artisan, like someone
Oh, okay.
who
I thought you were trying to
craft.
say artistic in a fancy way.
Look, I was, but it
I'm like
actually is.
artisanal. I was about to write it down on the slide line.
But yeah, like we are very gifted and we put our heart in the things that we create. But then to take it to that next level, as you say, from the grassroots to really turn this into an operation or a business, you got to learn business. Because again, it as you become I won't say a real, well, yeah, a real entrepreneur, you can't just be like just whimsical all day. No, you got to have some admin or an admin in place that is sending out invoices, or you have to have a calendar so you can keep up with the things that people are expecting of you. Because if not, you ain't gonna have people returning.
It's
Back.
hard to get people back after you didn't let them down. It really is. You
Right.
know, we're not very forgiving. Okay, if you had an entrepreneur superpower, and this really is the last question. If you had an entrepreneur superpower, what would it be? Boom. One word.
You may have to help me with this. I can create from my mind. Like whatever I see in my mind, I can produce it instantly. So whatever that superpower is,
Ooh, that let's
oh
just call that materializing or manifesting.
yes. Cause
So
I
you
have
would be like super manifesto.
right. I love it. Because that's what I do.
Okay. Huh?
I said that's what I do naturally. I mean, as far as even with my business, I take people's visions and manifest them.
Thank you so much for spending this time with me today. Nat C Company, you were my company today. Please let everybody know how they can connect with you. This is your time to share your social media handles, website, books, whatever you want to do. Have at it. Go.
All righty. So if you guys want to connect with me to see what I have going on, you can follow me on Instagram at Will B Morris, WILLB as in boy, MORRIS, or on Facebook with Genuine Creative Agency, or you can go to www.genuinecreativeagency.com.
All right. Thanks so much again, Will. I hope you had a good time.
Oh, I loved it. I enjoyed it.
All right. See you next time.
All right, Nat.
Bye.